All right. What is up, everybody? Sam Shaw, founder of Wall Street Mastermind here. Let me just make sure that I am live on all of our different platforms. We are currently trying to go live on Facebook, LinkedIn, as well as YouTube. So if you guys can hear me, no matter what platform you're on, do me a favor and just drop a comment down below so that I know you can hear me before I go ahead and get started here. I want to make sure that I'm not just talking to myself. What we're going to be doing today is an actual AMA, okay? I'm sure all of you guys know what that means, but stands for Ask Me Anything. And basically, I want to answer all of your investment banking recruiting questions. Okay, so whatever questions you might have, I'm basically here to just give you guys some free coaching. All right, so if you guys can hear me, drop a comment down below so that I know you can hear me. You guys can hear me. Yeah, drop a comment down below so that I know you can hear me. And we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Also, alternatively, if you guys have questions that you actually want me to answer, go ahead and drop that down below as well, because you guys have, that's how I'm going to be answering all of your questions. Okay, Ryan and Jasper, you guys said you can hear me on YouTube. Great. All right, so it sounds like you guys can hear me. So let's go ahead and get started. And Alexa says she can hear me. Thank you. So look, for those of you guys who are new, those of you guys who don't know who I am, my name is Sam Shaw. I'm the founder of Wall Street Mastermind. We've been around for about 3 years. We've worked with over 350, probably almost close to 400 students at this point during that period of time. So it's not a lot of students, but it's not that little either. But what we do is we work very closely with all of our students to coach them through every single step of the investment banking recruiting process. Okay, so essentially, whether it's application materials, building up your resume, to how to network with investment bankers, to your behavioral interview preparation, to your technical interview preparation, like we basically do it all, right? We'll teach you exactly what you need to do for anything that's recruiting related, right? So we've had a lot of success over the last 3 years or so. Basically, over 90% of our clients who have now finished the recruiting process have successfully broken into investment banking, right? So that's something that we're very proud of. Obviously, it's not easy to do, considering just how difficult it is to break into investment banking, right? The top investment banks accept probably between 1% and 3% of the applicant pool every year, right? So for us to have the type of success rate that we have, obviously we had to figure out a lot of things along the way. It wasn't always just like that from day one. Probably a lot of the same things that you guys are trying to figure out right now, right? So I just want to make sure that you guys take advantage of this time to really ask us all the questions that you have about investment banking recruiting, because I know that sometimes it can kind of feel like investment banking recruiting is kind of a black box, right? Just maybe you don't really know how to go about it, or maybe you kind of know very vaguely at a high level what you're supposed to be doing, but you don't know exactly how to do it, right? So if you guys have any questions, drop them down below in the comments. Otherwise, I'm gonna start with a question that I've gotten recently, and then we'll take things from there. Okay, so one question that we received from from Vidor is a friend told me to reach out to an alum over LinkedIn, but I emailed them instead, and it's been 5 days, no response. Should I follow up on email or just start a new message on LinkedIn? I'm not connected with them. Yeah, so this is a good question. I think there's a couple different questions here. One is, if I reach out to a banker or if I reach out to an alum and they don't respond, what should I do? And the other one is a question between um, whether the best channel to reach out to bankers is through LinkedIn or through email. Okay, so I'll answer those one at a time. The first one is in terms of what to do when a banker doesn't respond, you should always follow up. Okay, obviously, when you follow up, you should do it, within reason. But I'm not saying like follow up incessantly, and I'm not saying follow up, every single day. But what you should do is, I would probably follow up to. I wouldn't reach out to a banker more than 3 times. Okay, but if you reach out the first time and they don't respond, I will wait at least a few days, if not, depending on how much of a rush you're in, right? Like if you're trying to apply to their bank and the application deadline is coming up soon, then you probably have to rush things a bit more. And even then, on the low end, I probably would not follow up until at least 2 or 3 days later. Okay, you don't want to follow up the same day. You don't want to follow up like the very next day. That's a bit too pushy, right? So 2 to 3 day buffer. But if you have more time and it's not a huge rush, you might even wait up to a week before you follow up, just to give them ample time to respond. Sometimes bankers are just busy and they are not ignoring you on purpose, but you got to think about all the messages and emails that they're getting, mostly from clients and from their bosses, like senior bankers, and they're always going to prioritize those emails first, right? And so sometimes, I know personally, like I've had instances where people reach out to me and I intended to get back to them, but maybe I'm in the middle of a very tight deadline, or maybe I have a pitch deck that I have to get out in the next 2 hours or whatever. And so I just skip over the email and say, hey, I'm going to come back to this later. And I just forget, right? Because then something else comes in. And then by the time I get to the end of my day, your email or your message might be so far down in my inbox. It might be on page 2, page 3, page 4, whatever, out of sight, out of mind, and just forget about it, right? So a lot of times, the first thing to know is don't just assume that the bankers are ignoring you on purpose. A lot of people, I know that in normal instances, if you email a friend or a family or whatever, and then like people don't respond, you kind of automatically assume that, oh, this guy doesn't want to talk to me, right? And banking is different because people are just so busy, right? So assume no malice, assume no bad intent. A lot of times, the most simple explanation is the most logical explanation, right? So follow up. That's the first thing. Second thing, the second question in there was, and I said also, don't follow up more than 3 times, because obviously, look, the first time they don't respond could be an accident, right? The second time they don't respond might still be an accident. If they don't respond to you 3 times in a row, honestly, like they probably just don't want to talk to you, right? And at that point, you got to take a hint, and you always want to strike a balance between being persistent and not being annoying, right? And so, a lot of times we'll even say that explicitly in our last follow-up email in terms of, what we're trying to do, right? Trying to strike that balance. And that's worked very well for a lot of the students that we work with. Okay, so that's one of the templates that we share with our students. So that's the first part. And the second part is like, should I follow up through email or should I follow up through LinkedIn, right? And look, there's no like absolute rule of thumb that says you have to do it through email or LinkedIn. But in general, what we found is that our students have a lot more success going through email. Okay. Now, again, not saying that all bankers are more responsive on email, right? Some bankers might be more responsive on LinkedIn, some might be more responsive on email, but you're never going to have something that just, is definitive 100% of the time. So for us, we're playing the odds, right? We want to do whatever is going to give us the best probability of getting a response. And so we have a very large sample size of data where, because we've worked with hundreds of students and each of our students have sent out hundreds, if not thousands, of networking emails. And so, everything we recommend is based on data. It's a data-driven approach. It's not just, oh, because Sam said so, right? And so, in general, all I can tell you guys is that bankers are more likely to respond through email than through LinkedIn. In fact, I know a lot of bankers that barely check LinkedIn, if ever, right? But I know for a fact that bankers check their emails um, dozens of times a day, sometimes more, right? Because that is like one of the main communication tools that they use at work, right? Whether, again, they get a lot of emails from their bosses and from their clients, so they have to be responsive on email. So that pretty much, like, as a banker, I had a habit to basically look at every single email that came into my inbox. Okay. Even if I don't respond to every single email, even if I don't read every single email in detail, I will at least look at the subject line, right? And I will at least maybe even click into it and skim it for a second or two and just make a quick decision about whether I need to respond or if I'm moving on, right? So if you reach out to them by email, there's a much higher probability that they'll at least see it. They'll at least see the message. Doesn't mean that they'll always respond, but I think that will increase your odds. Okay, so hopefully that answers that question. Let me go to the next question here. Most of the questions seem to be coming in from YouTube. So those of you that are watching on Facebook and LinkedIn, make sure you're asking questions as well if you have any questions. I'll make sure to try to answer as many as I can. So on YouTube, Kevin asks, I only have a 3.4 GPA. I'm not in an organization. Do you think I can make it? Yeah, so Kevin, this is a common question that we get all the time. Without knowing anything about you, aside from your GPA, it's very hard to say like whether you can make it or not, right? Because GPA is just one of the many factors when it comes to investment banking recruiting. Like, it's a holistic review of your candidacy. They look at your school, they look at your GPA, they look at your work experience, they look at your leadership experience, your extracurriculars. Although it sounds like you mentioned that you're not in any organizations. They also, a lot of it also comes down to your networking, because if you can do a good job with networking and you can actually get the bankers to really like you and go to bat for you, a lot of times that can overcome a lot of different flaws that you might have on paper, right? So I think as far as the GPA goes, just the GPA alone, the 3.4, I would say isn't real. That's not like so low where it automatically disqualifies you from most banks. Okay. I have seen some banks that have a GPA cutoff and they set it at like 3.5, right? And if they set it at 3.5, I think like Citi does that actually. But if they say that on the job description, then even then I might still apply, because a lot of times banks will list stuff on job descriptions that are they're incentivized to list their entire wish list. So some of them are nice to have and some of them are must. But I would say if they list a 3.5 cutoff explicitly, your chances are going to be pretty darn low there, but I would still probably apply. But for most banks, I don't see a hard GPA cutoff. So there are other ways to overcome that. Okay. So that's what I would say. You said I only have fast food experience as my work. Yeah. So, I mean, if you only have fast food experience as your work, that's going to be pretty tough, because if they get your resume and all they see is fast food experience, there's no indication whatsoever that you're someone who's actually genuinely interested in finance, right? So what you want to do, I don't know what year in school you are, but if you're still early enough, then you need to go out and try to get some relevant experience, right? Whether that's finance internships or, like you said, joining relevant student organizations on campus. I would say the work experience is more important than the school organizations. Like, if you could only have one versus the other, I will optimize for the work experience. But ideally, obviously, you would have both, right? And there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do both. if you manage your time right? So that's a big part of, what we help our clients with too is a lot of our clients, they come to us and they don't have any relevant experience, right? Like all that, getting that first relevant experience is always the hardest, usually the hardest one, because it's kind of the chicken and the egg problem, where if you don't have any relevant experience, how can you get someone to hire you? Because they're looking for people with relevant experience in the first place, right? So we see that a lot, and so we've actually figured out a way that we train our clients on, where most of our clients, actually all of our clients who come in, even if they don't have any relevant experience, if they need to get that first internship experience, we'll help them get that. We'll teach them, help them with the applications, and we'll teach them how to go out and where to find these internships. And usually we're able to find them something on average within just 1 to 2 weeks, even they have no relevant prior experience, right? So that's really, really important. And then look, school clubs, like it just depends on, what's available on campus, right? We even have clients that rather than joining a school club, because sometimes a lot of these clubs are pretty selective. And so if you maybe applied and you couldn't get into one of these feeder clubs, you can always start your own, right? I mean, it's a lot of work, but also it looks better, right? That's the trade-off. So like I had a client, one of my most successful clients, he started a private equity venture capital club on campus his second year, right? His sophomore year. And then he added that to a resume, and then he went through recruiting with that as part of his application materials, right? He said, I graduated. Okay, got it. So Kevin, if you already graduated, then it's going to be really tough, okay? Because most investment banks will only hire people, at least the top investment banks, they'll only hire people either directly out of undergrad or out of business school, right? So if you already graduated, you're going to have to, and you're determined to get into investment banking, you're going to have to probably go back and try to get into a top business school. But top business schools are also very selective. They are usually not going to hire you if all you have on your resume is fast food experience, right? I mean, unless you meant like fast food corporate, but if you mean like fast food as in like, you work in the kitchen or you work as a cashier or something, then I think most business schools probably don't look for that too much. Okay, so let me go to the next question, just in the interest of time. I see questions coming in on Facebook and on YouTube. So Hakeem says, that is great insight. Thanks, Hakeem. Ryan says, how do you know if someone really wants to do IB from a recruiter standpoint? I know you can say you do, club, org, intern, etc., but what else? Yeah, I mean, look, from a recruiter standpoint, I suppose there's no way for them to really, truly know. But usually, I always tell people, like, show, don't tell, right? If you just tell me you want to do IB, I may or may not believe you. But if you show me that you want to do IB, because when I look at your resume, you've done all these finance internships, you have finance extracurricular activities, you've done finance case competitions, your even your stories, like part of it is through the networking and through the interview, like they're asking you stories about, why do you want to do banking, right? Or tell me about yourself, or why our bank? Excuse me. Excuse me. Your answers to a lot of those questions will tell them a lot about you, right? And not even just what you say, but how you say it too. Like interviewers, they've met so many students now, like they're very good at sussing out whether someone's being genuine or not, right? And you can just tell from like a 30-minute conversation with someone, how much do they actually know about the industry? Do they know what they're getting into? It's pretty hard to fake genuine interest, in my opinion. Okay, so that's what the networking and the interview process is designed to do. And then, but of course, to even get the networking opportunity or to even get the interviews, you're going to have to look good on paper, which is why, having those relevant experiences on your resume, that comes first, right? First and foremost, like if you don't have that, your life's going to be very, very difficult for all the other stuff, right? Hopefully that makes sense, Ryan. Hidana, maybe, I don't know, asks, would having a CFA level 1 completed plus tons of networking help me differentiate myself from other candidates as a semi-target student? Yeah, I mean, look, having a CFA level 1, it doesn't really hurt, obviously, but there's this misconception that, oh, because it's a CFA, it's related to finance, and so therefore it's going to help me for banking. It actually, CFA has nothing to do with investment banking. I think if you want to do like portfolio management, asset management, and stuff like that, I think it's a bit more relevant. But all the stuff that you're learning for the CFA, it's not actually stuff that you're going to be doing on the job. Like, for example, you didn't learn anything about mergers and acquisitions when you study for the CFA, right? You didn't learn anything about raising capital or IPOs and stuff like that. And so um, I actually find that like most bankers don't really care too much about. Like it's not going to hurt you, but it's also not really going to help you that much. Like it's just not a big needle mover. And so there's always the opportunity cost of time, right? And so if you're going to spend time, I don't know how many hours it takes to study for the CFA, but if you're going to spend time doing that, in general, like there's going to be better things you can do than than to study for the CFA. Like you can go out and find an internship and do the internship. Like most relevant internships, you got to probably do it for at least 10 to 15 hours a week, if not more, right? So instead of studying for the CFA, you could do something like that, right? You could join an extracurricular activity. You can, study for your interviews. You can network. Like there's so many things you need to do for investment banking and recruiting in order for you to be successful that you have to be very efficient with your time and only spend time on the stuff that matters to you, right? Or not the stuff that matters to you, but only spend time on the stuff that's actually going to move the needle, right? Everything else, if it's not really moving the needle, it's not helping you, then it's actually hurting you, okay? So hopefully that helps. The next question is from Sri John. Hey, what's up, Sri John? It's been a while. When you were an analyst, did you respond to networking requests from students who went to different schools than you? Yeah, of course I did. Like this is, I have a video about this on my YouTube channel where one of the biggest myths when it comes to investment banking networking is that people think that they can only reach out to alumni from their school. I mean, I'll just tell you guys, like I said, we've worked with over 350 students over the last 3 years or so. About probably half of them have been non-target school students, meaning they go to schools where they don't have a lot of alumni who are in banking. And so if they could only reach out to alumni from their schools, then they just wouldn't get very far, right? Like for a lot of these people, they have to reach out to people who didn't go to their school because they don't have any other choice. And quite frankly, is it going to be harder if they didn't go to your school? Yeah, it's going to be slightly harder, but does that mean that no one's going to talk to you? No, right? And it just means that you also have to be even better with how you go about the networking process. Your resume has to be better. Your LinkedIn has to be better. The way you reach out has to be better. The way you craft your emails, the way you follow up, like all the strategies and tactics that go into it. The bar is just that much higher, right? And then also for them to help you, like you have to be that much better at having that conversation, right? No, there's no rule that says you can only reach out to alumni from your college. Like all it is that people are more likely to help people that have something in common with them, right? And so you go into the same college as them. That's one commonality, but there could be a lot of other commonalities that you might have with someone. And so you got to get creative and think outside the box, right? So like for our clients, like we actually give them, I think like a list of over 40 different things for them to think about, or over 40 different commonalities or 40 different places that they can go and look to try to get networking contacts, out of their network, right? So definitely like expand your thinking. Don't limit yourself to just reaching out to the alumni from your school. Of course, if you have a lot of alumni from your school, you should start there. Always start with the people that are the most likely to help you, and then work your way down. Like start from your warmest network, and then eventually you're gonna have to. I want you to like picture kind of concentric circles, and you're in the middle. You're gonna start with the people that are closest to the middle, and then just like move out from there, right? And they say like pretty much every single person in the world, there's only 6 degrees of separation, right? So you move to your first degrees and second degree, third degree, fourth degree, fifth degree, sixth degree. Like you probably won't get to the 6th degree, but you get the point, right? That's going to be the best use of your time. Okay. So that's that question. Let me move over here to Facebook. So for a second because I see these questions popping up on Facebook. So Enrique asks, for a current freshman, how is it possible to obtain short 1 week internships before applying for summer 2023-2024 internships? Enrique, I'm not sure what you mean by 1 week internships. I haven't really heard of 1 week internships before because most internships, they probably want you to be there for at least 2 months or 3 months, right? So if you're doing like a 1 week thing, typically that's an externship, but externships usually aren't as good because that's more just like a job shadowing type of deal. Like you're not going to be able to get any real work or real responsibility if you're only there for a week, right? So not sure what you mean by 1 week internship, but for our freshman clients, what we're doing is we'll help them find, like I said, like if they have absolutely no experience, we'll help them find usually an internship at like a small private equity firm, which is highly relevant because then you're helping out with, acquisitions, you're acquiring businesses, which is pretty much what you'll be doing in banking. And typically like nowadays, because of COVID, social distancing, like a lot of internships aren't really happening in person. And so what we'll do is these internships that we'll find for them are actually remote, right? So you can do it remotely, you can do it from home, and that way you don't have to worry about, COVID and stuff like that. And the firm doesn't have to worry about COVID. And usually our clients will do it for like, it takes probably about 2 to 3 days to first like fix up the application materials. So you got to do that first, right? Fix up your resume, your LinkedIn profile. And then from there, it takes another, usually on average, like 1 to 2 weeks to apply for these jobs, go through the interviews, and then like get an offer, right? And then a lot of times our clients will actually get multiple offers because they're talking to multiple firms at the same time, and then we'll help them pick the best one, right? And then so theoretically, like right now it's March 23rd. By early April, you could have something lined up, and then let's say you do that for 2 months, let's say, right? And that brings you to early June, and then you can simultaneously, while you're doing this internship, you can try to line up something for this upcoming summer, even, right? For summer 2021, if you don't have something for that yet. And so you can do something now, you can do something in summer 2021, and then by the time you go into sophomore year, you already have 2 internships on your resume, right? And I'm not sure where you're located, if you're in the US or the UK or somewhere else, but like here in the US, if you are a sophomore or once you become a sophomore, the junior summer internship recruiting process starts halfway through sophomore year, right? So you want to have all the experiences that you want to add to your resume accumulated before the end of your first semester of sophomore year, right? Because then at that point, once all the applications start opening up, you're already ready to go. And the resume that you submit will already have all these internships on there, which is going to make you a lot more competitive, right? Definitely more competitive than most other sophomores, okay? So hopefully that answers your question, but if you guys have follow-up questions or if something doesn't make sense, feel free to drop another comment, okay? Sam asks, how important is a freshman summer internship? If presented with the opportunity of a data input finance job versus a real/great experience internship, how would you think about making a decision? Sam, I'm not sure what you mean by data input finance job. Like what kind of job is it? What industry is it in? What is the firm? What will you actually be doing there? Like what does data input mean? And what is real/great experience internship? Like if you can give me a bit more specifics, I'm happy to give you my opinion and my thoughts, but it's kind of hard to really to provide an opinion on that when I don't know what I'm comparing. So maybe drop another comment down below and let me know. Victoria asks, I'm an econ major that took some finance courses, but not really that much finance background. Any courses that you recommend apart from the CFA level 1? CFI, the Marquee Group, Wall Street Prep, Coursera, etc. Victor, so it depends on what you're trying to take these courses for. Like if you're just trying to take these courses for like investment banking recruiting, like for the technical interview, then I I mean, I'm not familiar with Marquee Group actually, so I don't know what that is. CFI I've heard of. Wall Street Prep obviously I know. Uh, Coursera, my understanding is that's just kind of like college courses, college finance courses that they put online. So that probably wouldn't be as applicable because most college finance courses, like they'll give you bits and pieces of what you need to know for investment banking interviews, but it's not just focused on the investment banking interview, right? So whatever you do, if you're trying to take a course for the investment banking interviews, then I would focus on the courses that are specifically just only teaching you everything you need to know for investment banking recruiting, nothing more, nothing less, right? Because there's a lot of stuff under the finance umbrella that's actually not within the scope of investment banking interviews. So you don't want to be wasting your time with that, right? Um, in terms of like courses, I mean, look, obviously, like I'm biased. I run Wall Street Mastermind, so the first thing that I'm going to recommend is to go through Wall Street Mastermind, right? But we're also not really like a course. Where most of these things that you're mentioning, they're kind of like DIY courses where you get a PDF file or you get a bunch of videos and then you're just expected to sit through it and watch everything and figure everything on your own, right? That's kind of like more of a self-study type of thing. It can work for some people. I know for a lot of people, it doesn't really work that well because that's kind of like, when you're not a subject matter expert on something yet and you're trying to teach yourself that subject matter, right? It's kind of the difference between you going to school and going to class and going to lecture and learning from a professor and then going to small groups and going to section and asking your questions to your TA versus, you just buying a textbook and staying at home and reading that textbook on your own and trying to learn that way. Like one way, like the first way is always going to be more effective than the second way, right? So the way that Wall Street Mastermind teaches our students or technicals is we do it the first way, which is we try to model kind of like that learning environment you get in school where like I'm the professor, we have live instruction. Of course, we also have videos and stuff like that, and we have assignments that you need to complete. But it's live instruction, right? And we have office hours twice a week, right? Where you can come and ask questions, right? And you can jump on calls with us and, ask us questions when you need help with something or you don't understand something, or you can message us in Slack. Like it's very interactive, where we're actually teaching you everything you need to know, as opposed to saying, hey, here's a bunch of stuff, go and figure everything out on your own, right? Because that like, again, it's not the most efficient way to do it. And a lot of times for people that are trying to get into banking, they're short on time just because of how early investment banking recruiting is happening nowadays, right? Again, like I said, the junior summer internship process starts halfway through sophomore year, right? The sophomores right now are going through it as we speak, right? So I don't know what year you are. So it's more efficient. It's also more effective, right? Because just as human beings, we learn better when someone who's already really good at that thing teaches it to us than if we have to figure everything out on our own, right? So honestly, like, even though I'm biased, I genuinely believe, and I stand by this, that we have the best program out there when it comes to learning the things you need to know for investment banking recruiting. Okay, so if that's something that you're interested in, like you can go on our website, book a call with our team. We don't work with everybody because it's a lot of work to teach someone all the things we need to teach them. It's like, there's a lot of one-on-one involved, and so we have to see if it's a good fit, right? We have to see what your goals are, what your challenges are, what your profile is, if we think we're actually a good fit to help you. Okay, so if we are, happy to work with you. If not, we'll at least just give you some advice on what else we think might be best for you, right? So hopefully that helps. Conwall asks, hopefully I'm not butchering your name, but Conwall asks, I am a sophomore engineering major and minoring in finance. What do you recommend in terms of showing strong interest / getting started networking? Yeah, I mean, look, in terms of showing strong interest, like I said, you got to build up your resume with the relevant experiences. So you got to go out and get relevant internships. You got to join the relevant organizations on campus. Ideally, you have both. You can also do things like case competitions that also demonstrate interest. In terms of getting started networking, like I'm not sure what you mean by what do I recommend, but you got to just basically go out and find the people that you want to target and start reaching out to them, right? At a high level, like I don't have time to teach you every nitty gritty detail about how to go about networking just on this AMA, because honestly, our networking training is like over 10 hours. So we'll be here all day. But at a high level, what you do is you create a list of bankers that you want to target. Then you got to get their contact information. Like I said, typically we're trying to email them. So you got to get their email addresses, right? Then from there, you're going to send them an email and you're going to ask them for a little bit of their time to see if they'd be willing to talk to you. And if they agree to talk to you, you're going to set up that call or a Zoom meeting or whatever it is that they want to do. And then you're going to have to be prepared to both ask them questions and you're going to have to be prepared to answer their questions, right? And then the purpose of that conversation is to impress them enough to win them over so that hopefully they will be willing to refer you when you do apply, right? So that's kind of like at a high level how you go about the networking process. I've been probably oversimplifying it, but if you have follow-up questions to that, feel free to drop a comment down below, and I'll try to answer it. Okay. Michael asks, thanks for doing this. I'm recent graduates from non-target with multiple finance experiences and 1 PE experience. Got a job from BB Bank as a securities lending analyst. Name, GS, MS, etc. What are the career exit ops? Securities lending analyst. Honestly, dude, Michael, I'm not really sure, but because we focus on investment banking, so like front office investment banking, meaning if you're doing like M&A and capital raises, right? Securities lending, I'm not really sure what that is or what you'll be doing exactly, so it's hard for me to say. But I think, if you could probably find this online though, probably on somewhere like, I don't know, like if you just Google like securities lending exit ops, I'm guessing you've done this. I'm looking this up right now. The securities lending considered your front office. Is it difficult land like IBM, S&T? What's the pay like? Manage portfolio loans for clients. They lend out stocks to clients who want them, usually to cover shorts. The bank brokers. Okay. Yeah, I don't think this is like investment banking, unfortunately. So, but according to this, it says if you can effectively do all of those, then exiting to an equity long short fund is possible. So maybe you can go to a hedge fund, but I think that the exit opportunities, if I were being completely honest, is not the best, right? And also, even when you exit to a hedge fund, this sounds like more of a sales and trading role, right? So usually, even if you want to work for a hedge fund, the best place to start is still investment banking, because when you go to a hedge fund, there are different types of roles. There's like the investment analysts and the research analysts who are responsible for generating the ideas and like figuring out which stocks you want to invest in, which is kind of what most people think of when they think of working at hedge funds. And then there's like the traders who are responsible for executing the trades. So once the investment analysts have come up with an idea and it's been approved, they give it to the trader, and then the trader's job is to like just go out and try to execute the trade and get the best price possible, right? But to me, and I think like a securities lending role, even if you do exit to a hedge fund, is probably more in a trading position. To me, that's not really as interesting, right? I think the more interesting, the more fulfilling work, and probably the work where you get paid more, is to generate the investment ideas, right? So hopefully that makes sense. I mean, look, like depending on what you want to do long term, right? Like since you're asking about exit ops, I assume you're thinking about what you want to do later on, but there's a chance that you might want to consider trying to lateral out and move into the investment banking side of things, depending on what you want to do afterwards. Okay, so hopefully that helps. And look, if that's something that you want to do, like we've helped people do that too. Like we helped a couple of clients transition from sales and trading to investment banking. We've helped clients go from audit to investment banking. We've helped clients go from valuation to investment banking, from corporate development to investment banking. So if you're in if you've already graduated, it's hard to break into banking, but the exception to that is if you are in a field that's somewhat tangential to banking, like within finance already, I think it becomes a lot easier if you know what you're doing. Okay. So let me keep going. Victor says, I mean, courses to signal that I'm well prepared knowledge-wise. Yeah, I mean, look, Victor, if you're just talking about courses to signal that you're well prepared knowledge-wise, I suppose you could take like one of these financial modeling courses online and whatnot. and have that on your resume. I've seen people do that. But to be honest, I'll just tell you right now, like I don't think bankers put too much weight into that. I know I don't. Like usually, like they care more again about if your purpose for doing this is to demonstrate interest. The best way to do that again is to go out and get a relevant internship or multiple relevant internships, and to join the right student organizations on campus, right? Or do case competitions, like probably in that order. Okay, the best thing to do is to get relevant internships. So I would be focusing on stuff like that as opposed to saying like, oh, let me go out and take a course, right? That's great. I was not aware of that. Thanks, no problem. Colin Wall says, thank you. Quick follow up. Are you strongly in favor of email over LinkedIn? Yeah, I'm not sure when you joined this, Colin Wall, but I talked about this in the very beginning. But yes, this was the first question that we covered on this AMA. Yes, I'm strongly in favor of email over LinkedIn. We have a lot of data points on this, or a large sample size, having worked with hundreds of students. We've collectively sent out probably tens of thousands of networking messages, if not more, and we find that people tend to get better responses or better response rates on email over LinkedIn. Okay. Let's keep going. The next question is, hi, I'm finishing a spring P internship. Hey Zion, what's up? Good to hear from you, man. I am finishing a spring PE internship. Do you think this is enough relevant experience? For 2022 summer recruiting, I'm moving to Europe from a master's in the summer, and it's hard just as quick to do another internship. What is something else I can do over the summer? Any advice? Thank you. Zion, whether it's enough relevant experience or not, it's hard to say. I mean, it depends on what else you have on your resume, right? Obviously, more experience is always better. I don't think you can ever have too much experience, right? So, time permitting, I would always recommend, doing, I think like ideally I like to see 2, if, probably 3 is, I rarely see people have more than 3, to be honest, these days. I mean, I've seen like 4, very rarely, but ideally I like to see probably 2 to 3, right? But if you only have 1, then you only have 1. Like, depends on also what you've done at that internship. Like if you've done a lot and you have really good quality experience there, you have great, you had a great amount of responsibilities, you can write really good bullet points, it might be okay, right? And also, like, depends on, I don't know what else you're doing extracurricular wise, what else, like, but in terms of what you can do over the summer, you can do you can do case competitions. There are also these like online virtual internship type things that you can do related to banking. I think you have access to our modules, Zion. So, I talked about this in there, but it might be, I added it. I think I added it after you got access to it. So you might have skipped over it, or you might have to go back and look at it. But like, there are certain things that you can do, these virtual internships online, which are pretty quick. And so if you just want like stuff to fill up your resume with, those are like just quick and easy things, like low hanging fruit, so to speak. So you can do stuff like that. It also depends on why you think you can't do something over the summer. I mean, if it's because you're going to be moving, you can also do like some of these internships that are remote, right? 10 to 15 hours a week or whatever, if you can squeeze that into your schedule, right? So I don't know. I think like that's what I would recommend. But, if you want to tell me more specifics about your situation and you don't want to do it here, feel free to also email me as well. And, happy to just be a sounding board. You can bounce some ideas off of me. Okay. So let me come back. So those are all the questions on the Facebook side for now. Let me go back to the other platform. So again, if you're on Facebook, if you're on LinkedIn, if you're on YouTube, if you guys have questions, feel free to drop more comments down below. I'm just moving through the queue here. And while you guys are doing that, let me refresh my windows because sometimes there's lag. But while you guys are doing that, for those of you that joined late, again, I'll just do a quick little commercial break here while you guys are dropping more questions. But if you're not familiar with Wall Street Mastermind, basically what we do is, and actually, you know what? I'm going to drop this link down below in the comment section so that you guys can just go look at it. But for those of you that are curious what it is that Wall Street Mastermind actually does, here's an overview page where you can see what we actually do with our clients. Okay, so it's really like there's like a 6-part process, so to speak. Where like there's like 6 different parts to our program. Each of them we consider to be like a huge competitive advantage that you can have over your competition when it comes to investment banking and recruiting, right? And so all of these different components go together, like they work hand in hand to give you like all the different pieces of the puzzle that you need to be competitive in investment banking and recruiting. Because again, usually like if you're missing one of these components and you're only good in the other areas, like it's that one thing that you're missing, we see this time and time again, it's going to be the thing that stops you from getting either the interview, or maybe you get the interview but you don't pass the interview, right? Like for example, let's say your resume is really good, right? But you're not good at answering technical questions. You might get an interview, but when you get to the interview, you're gonna make mistakes on those questions, and so you're not gonna get the job, right? Or the opposite could be true, where maybe you're really, really good at interviewing, and you know how to answer all the technical questions because you studied it, you learned everything, but you don't have enough relevant experience on your resume. Or maybe you haven't networked with the bankers, or you don't know how to network effectively with the bankers, so you're not able to get referrals for these interviews. So you just don't get that many interviews in the first place, and therefore, you don't end up getting an offer. Like we've seen both of those things happen, right? And we've had clients that come to us when they need help on the interview side. We've also had clients that come to us when they need help on getting the interview itself, and we have clients that more often than not come to us when they need help with both, right? But either way, you need to make sure that you're good in both of those areas, right? Whether it's your application materials and your networking, that's we call that getting the interview, or your behavioral interview skills and your technical interview skills, we call that acing the interview, right? So you got to be able to get the interview, you got to be able to ace the interview, and if you can do both of those things, then you'll get an offer, right? If you can't do one out of those 2 things, then you're not going to get an offer, right? So what we do is we really take a holistic approach and a one-on-one approach, because every candidate is different, and even helping you develop your stories and your answers and crafting your resume and telling your behavioral stories, like those are all going to be different depending on who you are, what you've done in the past, and where you're trying to go, right? And so that's what we do, is we help you come up with a game plan that's going to be specific to you, that's going to bring out your strengths, and it's going to conceal your weaknesses, and it's going to tailor everything to what the investment bankers are looking for, based on the wealth of knowledge and experience that we have from having worked with over 350 students and having placed over 90% of them into banking, like just seeing what works and what doesn't, right? So again, everything we do is very much a data-driven approach, right? So that's kind of what we do. So if you guys are interested in that, like check out the overview page that I just dropped in the comments. It'll give you a more detailed walkthrough of what it is that we do. And then look, if you guys think it looks interesting and it's something that you think would be really helpful for you, then there's a link on the page where you guys can go and actually book a call with our team to see if we're a good fit. Because again, like I said, we don't work with everybody that we talk to, because we don't have the bandwidth to do that. We only want to work with the people that we're absolutely certain, we're highly confident that we can get the offer for, because we want this relationship to be a win-win, right? We don't want you to sign on, waste your time, if ultimately you're not going to get the job. And then a waste of your time, waste of our time, and it hurts you, and it actually hurts our business as well, right? So let me come back. So that's a little quick plug there, a little shameless plug, but let me come back. I'm gonna hit refresh one more time just to see if there are any more questions. So guys, last call on questions. If you have questions, feel free to drop them down below, whether you're on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook. And if there are more questions, I'm happy to answer a few more. I have a little bit more time. If there are no more questions, then we can basically hop off here. All right. So doing one last check on YouTube. Don't really see anything here. Doing one more check on LinkedIn. Don't see anything here. And then doing one last check on Facebook. And I don't see anything on Facebook. Okay, guys. So I don't really see anything else here. So if there are no more questions, okay, Conwell says 1 second. All right, Conwell, I'll wait. I'll hold up. I think he's about to ask a question. So Zion asks, do you need technology knowledge to break into tech IBD? So you don't need, well, depending on what you mean by technology knowledge, right? Like, you don't need to be an engineer. You don't need to be like a computer science major or anything like that to do technology investment banking. Like, I was a business major and I did investment banking or technology investment banking, right? You will need to demonstrate interest in the technology sector, though. You know, like, there will be questions that come up during the interview. If you're interviewing for tech banking, like, they will ask you like, hey, tell us about a tech trend that you've been following, right? Or tell us about you know, a deal in the technology space that you think is interesting, or, you know, like stuff like that, right? Or pitch us a technology stock, right? Those are ways for them to actually test you on whether you're genuinely interested in the industry or not, because you don't have to be an expert on the industry, especially as a junior person, right? Like, if you're a managing director in technology banking, you're going to have to know a lot about the industry. But as a junior person, I think the only expectation is that, hey, you have a genuine interest in it and you're willing to learn it. You're open to learning about it. So if I were you and you want to do tech banking, like, I would be following up on tech news, right? Like, read. There are a lot of websites you can follow. There's like TechCrunch. There's Stratechery, I think is how you spell it. Here, I'll drop them down in the comments. So there's TechCrunch, Stratechery. I think it's, I might be butchering it. Oh, Stratechery, I think is what it's called. So I replied to your comment with, like, you know, different things you can read to really like follow up on what's going on in tech. And there's probably a bunch of others. That way you're going to be knowledgeable when you have to speak to this stuff in an interview, right? There's also a lot of firms, like consulting firms or even big four firms, where they publish like industry primers and white papers on what's going on in different industries. And so that's another good way to do industry research. Okay. Hopefully that helps. And then Conwell asks, what sort of internships are strictly relevant to IB? So Conwell, I actually have a YouTube video on this. So let me just link you to that here. Okay, I actually talk about this, and I actually even not just talk about it, but I actually talk about like, I actually rank them in order in order of relevance, right? From like most relevant to least relevant. So I would check that out, and you know, it should answer your question. Okay. Let me see if there are any other questions. I'll drop this here on LinkedIn as well, for those of you that want to see the video I'm talking about. And I dropped it on YouTube. Okay, so for those of you that are wondering, like, hey, what kind of relevant experience you can get for IB for investment banking, like, this video will cover that. Okay. Shameless plug again, for those of you that are not subscribed to my YouTube channel, you should subscribe to the YouTube channel, because a lot of these questions that even you guys are asking right now, probably a lot of questions that you're not asking right now, you haven't thought of, I cover the answers to those questions on my YouTube channel. Like, I release videos pretty much every single week, right? And so this is just free content to help you guys out. So make sure you subscribe to that. Help me spread the word. I'm trying to build my subscriber base so that I can get the word out there, okay, to more people. So let me see if there are any other questions in here. Let me refresh one more time on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. If you guys have any last minute questions, feel free to drop them down below. I got about 4 minutes before I have to hop, but happy to answer one or two more. Okay. Don't see anything on YouTube. Don't really see anything on LinkedIn. And last but not least, Don't really see anything on Facebook. Okay, guys. So I think we're good. Doesn't really seem like there are any more questions. So I think that'll be it for today. Hopefully you guys found this to be helpful. And, like I said, if you guys have any questions about banking recruiting, or you guys need help with banking recruiting, you want that, high touch, one-on-one coaching, pretty much like we offer the most support out of any company that we've seen in this space, right? So if you want the highest quality, the best help, not just from like random people, but actual investment bankers who have worked in banking, who have been interviewers, who have seen exactly how the process works from behind the scenes, and who have worked with hundreds of students, not like, oh, this is a side hustle, and we work like our banking job in the daytime, and then you're like this afterthought, or you're just like, some extra cash on the side and I'll get to you when I have time. Not like that, but we're like, you are 100% of your coach's focus. Like, we only have one job, which is get you a job in investment banking. So we can give you a lot of time and attention. Like, if that's what you're looking for, then check out the overview page that I dropped down below in the links. And then if everything sounds good to you, go ahead and book a call with us, and we'll be happy to talk to you over a free strategy session. And at a minimum, just give you some advice. But if everything sounds good and we mutually feel like it's a good fit, you and whoever you speak to on my team, then we'd be happy to work with you. Okay. So anyway, that'll be it for today, guys. Hopefully this was helpful. We'll be back again next week with a different training for you guys. So stay tuned for that, and we'll talk to you guys soon. All right. Bye.